Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February webinar series on China market entry. You have joined us for day one, part one of this webinar series, where we're going to be looking at how to write a China business plan. I am approached monthly by a variety of different entrepreneurs and leaders who are looking to enter the Chinese market and are stuck on actually formulating the business plan. And generally, I get the inquiry whether I can write those business plans for people. I am not in your head. So generally, when you are creating a business plan, you are the creator of that business. You are the creator of that entity that is going to be going into the Chinese market. So it's only you that can really formalize the business plan and the budget based on your financial resources and the objectives that you want to reach in the Chinese market. I am more than happy to validate business plans and budgets, but I can't help to create them. So in response to the amount of inquiries I've received around whether I can write business plans, I thought I would do a webinar session purely on what considerations you have to make when writing a business plan. And part of that will also be the budget, what you have to think about from a Chinese perspective, i.e. looking at things that are IP related, staff related, etc. And the types of business plans that exist, right? How big is your structure? What do you think investors are going to want to see, etc. We're going to look and delve into all of that today. Just to start off, I did not have so many registrants for this session, which is a big surprise considering the amount of inquiries I get on it. But whenever I start my webinars, I do want to have a bit of an understanding about who the audience is. So if you guys would be so kind to type in the Q&A section who you are. So I differentiate people based on their stage in the Chinese market. So my assumption will be that many of you are newbies, although I recognize some of those names, and I know some of you have done business in China before, so I wouldn't really designate you as being newbies. But newbies are those of you that are you've basically found an opportunity for China, or you know that there are opportunities that exist in China and you're looking to explore those opportunities and see whether it makes sense to set up an entity there or not. And you're evaluating what that return on investment would be really for that opportunity. The startups in China are usually those of you that technically already have business plans because you've already been transacting in China for a period of 1 to 3 years. And now you're trying to evaluate whether you've hit certain key trigger points that it makes sense to set up an entity. And then the experienced China hands are those that do have entities in China, but you're kind of probably looking for fresh new ideas on how to create business plans, right? I have to create a business plan on an annual basis. And with COVID, I've actually updated my budget, which is a key function of my business plan, on a monthly basis to, make sense of what's happening and how to pivot my business in every shape or form. So we've got one reply from Pui who says that they are experienced. Thank you, Pui. So it's interesting to see that, even the experienced China hands are coming on to understand how to write these business plans. How the webinar works today is that I'm new to Zoom. I've actually gotten off from GoToWebinar and I've moved on to Zoom because with COVID, everybody is on Zoom now. So please bear with me as I'm starting to learn the Zoom webinar functions and how it all works. This is my second time doing this on Zoom. From a technical standpoint, basically, if I'm speaking, I can't help you if you run into technical issues. So just know that the best solution is log off, log back in. Also note that we are recording today's session. So in case you get frustrated and give up, you will get a recording of the session that you can reflect back later on. If I get kicked off and booted out of my system, my own Wi-Fi system, it does take about 30 seconds to 1 minute for me to relog back in as my Wi-Fi reconnects. Bear with me on that. On the last webinar session, that did happen, but I will be coming on to finish off today's session. Also note, I do have my kids home, so if any one of them pops in, again, apologies up front. Usually they just want to see where I am, but it might interrupt a little bit. So again, apologies up front for that. The whole point of today's webinar session is that I'm going to educate you on business plans. It might not be the perfect way to do it, but it is going to give you an overall generic idea on how to create business plans, okay? And you can take basically tidbits of what I'm explaining. And the goal at the end of today's session is to provide you with a case study example, which is a mini plan that I actually found through a partner firm, a marketing partner firm of mine, and I decided to grab it from them because I thought it was a fantastic way to show just simply how a mini business plan can be created, okay? And then you can expand on it as you wish later on from that. Use this time wisely, use the Q&A use the Q&A section, ask all the questions that you want, add your comments inside. I will be staying on until all the questions and comments have been answered. That's my promise to you, to be able to be there for any information that you want. So use this time valuably and wisely. It is a complimentary session after all. Just to give you a bit of background on whom I am, my name is Christina Kohler-Colucci. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I'm one of the leading experts on inbound investment into China, and I've got 17 years of on-the-ground experience in corporate compliance and corporate services. I'm predominantly based out of Shanghai, although I'm currently confined in Europe due to COVID. And I've helped over 500 companies with their market entry strategies, creating various business models or phased business models, and then helping them to implement those structures. And the fun part of the business for us now is really to see our clients grow and help them to be able to grow in the Chinese market. I'm also a creator of the China Roadmap Methodology, the China Incorporation Blueprint, and the China Profit Accelerator, which are all webinars, and they're webinar methodologies basically on how to educate you on the key things you need to know, or the key considerations you need to know when you are on your journey in China, when you're incorporating, and when you're already incorporated and you need to focus on financial growth. Go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events, if you're interested in those topics. And then these are various ways of reaching out to me. At the end of today's session, I will input all of these functions into the Q&A so that you have easy access to me. We have a community on WeChat. So if you are a WeChat fanatic and you are a part of WeChat, join our China Roadmap community. It is a growing group of individuals that are either in China or outside of China who are just looking for advice. So you can ask questions in there if you want to have other people's experiences. You might get answers from the providers like myself, or you might get answers physically from people that are in that process of incorporating or building up their business or understanding what type of business model will suit them. It's a great community. It's not so interactive as I'd like it to be, but that really comes from the people themselves. So if you are interested, definitely join for that. So let's start off with today's session, which is the types of business plans that exist. And maybe this is also where this will give you a bit of guidance on how to formulate your business plans, okay? What options are there and what you need to think about. So the case study at the end of today's session is what I consider a mini plan. A mini plan is basically the bullet point goals and objectives related to the business you want to create in China, okay? It is an easy downloadable document that has really the key bullet points, and it is in a bullet point format so that it's easy to read, it's easy to digest, and highlights the key components about what you want to do into China. And I will show you what are the key chapters you should really include in this mini plan. Now, for small business ventures, those of you that are entrepreneurs that you are going to be financing this yourself and you're not looking for external investors, the mini plan is sufficient. You don't have to go further than that. But if you guys are looking for investors, then you would probably have to go more towards the presentation plan. Now, the presentation plan is basically a PowerPoint presentation highlighting what you want to do in China, right? It is an elegant form of presenting the data to investors, to banks, if you're looking to get loans from banks, from a variety of different people. You may even use this PowerPoint presentation to attract senior management, to attract high-end employees. This is a tool that is extremely powerful that should be between 20 to 30 minutes long. Again, each slide is a key functional chapter about what your goal is, what your objectives are, and how you're going to achieve them. Okay? There's no airy-fairiness about this, guys. You know, a lot of people are imagining creating business plans that have to be long sentences, that basically have to be books. You don't have to create a book when you're developing a business plan. It's just a PowerPoint presentation highlighting the various chapters and putting in those bullet points inside. When you are creating the PowerPoint, obviously, if you've got graphics to show your data and to show the analysis that has gone behind why this project makes sense for you in China, make those graphics as simple as possible, make them easy to understand. They're there to accentuate what your ultimate goal is in the Chinese market, okay? And again, be concise, okay? The presentations, you do have to plan them if you're going to present them to external parties where you're relying on funding, right? Or you're relying on someone to join your organization and be part of your organization. So you have to take the time to look at them versus the mini plan can be very much, so you're using it internally for yourself as an entrepreneur, it can be very much the bullet points that you'll see at the end. But in the PowerPoint, what you want to focus on is who are you? What are you going to be doing? Where are you going to be doing it? i.e. China, but specifically where in China? Why are you doing it? When is the project going to get launched? And then how are you operationally going to kick this off? So it's the who, the what, the where, the why, the when, and the how. Okay, that has to be all answered. Because if you don't answer those things, the investors will ask that in the meeting, right? Why haven't you added certain aspects in? So if you finish your presentation and you have an external party, just somebody who can validate it, look through it, and they say, right, you've got the who, you know, it's like a checklist. You've got the who, you've got the what, the where, the why, the when, and the how, right? You want that to be ticked off. Then you've got the working plan. So actually, when I started my business, I did a presentation plan, which turned into the working plan. And the working plan is ultimately the nitty-gritty details of how you are going to execute the project. So it's very much going into the operational side of the business in terms of employees, in terms of production, marketing, etc. So people have a variety of definitions. And so some of this wording might sound that it contradicts with one to the other, because the working plan is something that is tangible that you should actually use and work with, and it will be adapted constantly. So when I was doing it for myself, I actually created a presentation plan because for me, that's how I digest. That's just who I am. The mini plan was too many. The presentation plan was a nice way to provide an overall view of what I was looking to do in the Chinese market, especially as I was creating the new business, which is Woodburn. And the working plan was actually looking at the fundamentals of what were the profiles like of people I wanted to hire. Why did I want to hire those types of profiles? It was looking at the customer journey from start to finish. So going into detail, how that customer is going to find me, how that communication was going to be. And I actually created a step-by-step plan about how that communication flow would be until they signed my service agreement. And then came the onboarding process. So from the onboarding process to actually executing how they were going to be communicated with as the services were being delivered. This was all in the working plan. And this is something that is continuously adaptable, because as I see things formulating live, I realize that we need to fix things up and improve them, right? That's the whole point of the business, is to improve it from an efficiency perspective. And obviously, as you grow, you're always going to have to adapt your working plan to having more employees, to et cetera, creating a hierarchy. You're going to have an organizational diagram then at that point to understand who's reporting to whom. So The working plan is really the tool that you're going to use to show how you're going to operate your business. And it's up to you who you want to show this to. You can either use it as an internal document purely for yourself, or you're going to use it directly with your senior managers. Then you have to understand, are you going to show, what you're earning as a shareholder or as a director within the organization? This is completely up to you in terms of how you want to physically utilize this working plan document. Okay. And you might, again, change it. It's an adaptable piece of document. Whereas the presentation plan is something that you generate for the start of your year, and you probably will only look at it at the end of the year. Whereas the working plan is something that you utilize throughout the year to update as you progress. It's basically your note form to show how things can be improved. If you suddenly win a big deal, suddenly your revenue is high, it means that your presentation plan for next year will have to be amended anyhow. So it allows you to make notes basically as the year is progressing, and to review it maybe every month, every quarter, depending on who you want to then also verify that with internally within your team, etc. The what if plan is critical, and this is something I've added in purely because of COVID. All right. When you are a small, medium-sized business, you might not have what if plans because you cannot formulate certain scenarios within your head. But COVID showed us that we need to have what if plans. All right. Even if you are a small organization. The what if plan is basically when there are unusual circumstances appearing that you couldn't have predicted. You need to have a contingency plan. Basically, this is what it is. It's a contingency plan for any worst case scenario that could potentially exist. So that could be COVID, right? It could be the loss of market share. It could be heavy price competition. It could be senior managers getting out of your business to create something else. It could be new competitors coming in. It could be the fact that banks have stopped providing investment. It could be that new investors decide to exit the project before they've even submitted the funds. It is preparing for the worst case scenarios and having a couple of these scenarios existing, right? If, for example, key management would leave, I don't know, because of retirement, because of pregnancy, because they just don't like you, because of whatever reason, are you going to replace them? Are you going to promote internally? What would be your action plan for these worst case scenarios? Okay, so investors will say to you in meetings, or even banks might say to you in meetings, right, if you don't get this funding, or if you don't win this special client that you are hoping to win and that you're making the assumption you will win, what is the action plan thereafter? Okay, so it's creating this what if plan, creating maybe 4 to 5 different worst case scenarios that you can picture in your mind happening. What would be the action plan for all of those cases? So in COVID, again, this is now retrospect, right? But within COVID, the action plan, let's say pandemic, what would be your action plan? Would it be to downsize? Or would your first point be, let me call every single client to see where they're at? Are they going to survive this pandemic? Or are they going to terminate our agreements? If they terminate our agreements, are we going to have to downsize, i.e. terminate staff, or are we going to have to lower salaries, right? It's figuring out the potential scenarios. It's a very difficult exercise to do. And for me as a service provider, I don't have so many worst case scenarios. I probably have 2 or 3, and it's predominantly around client exitings or senior managers exiting. What would I do, right? And what would be my action plans around them? So these are 4 types of business plans that have very different purposes, okay? The most commonly used is the presentation plan, i.e. having a PowerPoint presentation, highlighting your goals and objectives and analyzing the various chapters, making it a 20 to 30-minute presentation, very concise, to the point, not airy-fairy, okay? versus creating a Word document that is 100 pages long with all your statistical and analytical data inside. No, people don't want to look at those details. They want a PowerPoint presentation where you're giving them the key points to attract them within your organization, okay? The what if plans, I think, are critical nowadays, especially because of the pandemic. So having contingency plans and what if scenarios. And the mini plan is just something maybe you want to create yourself to highlight. And I find the working plan as a great tool that can help you to eventually create operational guidelines for your organization in China. Because operational guidelines in China are a key function of your business that are required in order for you to spend less time on administrative functions and for you to focus more on growth and on the business. So use the working plan tool as a draft, basically, for creating these operational guidelines. All right. So here I've highlighted a variety of different what ifs. You know, what if you're going to be acquired? What if you're going to merge with a company? What if you're going to raise prices? Does that mean companies are going to exit? What if you invest in staff training and then staff leave? So many different scenarios, right? That can be created. What happens if you realize that your growth is so tremendous, you've got to leave your office and move into a new office space, right? Can you afford that new office space, etc.? Again, a whole wide variety of different scenarios, right? That can happen. So let's look now at the main components. So those are the types of business plans, right? Now let's look at the main components of a business plan. So first, you're going to have an executive summary. I feel this is the last thing you should be touching on. Okay, when you're creating your presentation plan, your PowerPoint presentation, this is the last thing you have to do. When you create a mini plan, you don't even have to create it. All right, executive summary is literally bullet points, one sentence per bullet point of what you want to do. Don't create this first. Create everything else first, and then go back to the executive summary. Okay. The executive summary is one slide, maybe 5 or 6 points, just highlighting what you want to show. All right. So, you know, the first sentence will be, describe your company. What are you selling? Right? Is it a product, a service, or are you sourcing in China? What are you doing? Right? Very brief, there to attract the attention of the people. Right? Describe the goal. What revenue do you want to achieve within the first year of operation? What revenue do you want to achieve within the first 3 years of operation? What is your net profitability going to be in the first 3 years? Okay, it is basically your elevator pitch, right? So very brief, very succinct, but it's the key data points that you want to say to the, say to the audience, basically, stay here because these are the 5 points I'm going to now explain to you in greater detail, and this is why you should be investing in it. All right. Business description and structure. And this is where I find that a lot of people are struggling with describing actually what they wanted to do. Now, this is where a very simple tool that I use when people want to incorporate in China is I tell my clients, take a blank piece of paper and in bullet points, say what you physically want to do as an activity in China. We will need it for the business scope in any case, okay? But so for myself, what am I doing in China? I'm going to use Woodburn as an example. I'm going to use bullet points, okay? Accounting, tax, payroll, incorporation, business advisory, invoicing agent, human resource services surrounding PEO solutions. Basically, you are listing these points, right? If you are selling products, it would be maybe import of XYZ products. It would be maybe you're purchasing locally, so purchase of XYZ products. You are maybe doing pick and pack, minor assembly, right? Just take a blank piece of paper to highlight what you physically want to do as activities. A person who can, in 2 to 3 sentences, explain what they are doing in the Chinese market is very difficult. You'd be surprised. People are not clear in their thoughts about what they want to physically do in China. Okay, so start off with a blank piece of paper and bullet points, and then we can go on to further aspects of the business. Okay, So this is where you're explaining why you're in business, why you want to do this, and what you're selling. Okay. Now, predominantly 90% of the people who approach me are looking to sell in China. There is still this 10% portion that are looking to either manufacture through third parties or looking to manufacture themselves in China. For me, it's a very small portion, which is why I'm focusing very much on the aspect of selling into the Chinese market. Okay. If you are selling products, you've got to understand, you've got to describe basically your manufacturing process. Even if you are not manufacturing and you are using third parties to manufacture, you've got to explain that. You are using third parties to manufacture. Who are those third parties? Where are those third parties based? Right? What is the availability of materials? Okay. How are you going to handle inventory and fulfillment? Will you have a warehouse in China? Will you outsource that warehouse? Or where you do something like cross-border e-commerce where you're just selling direct from the UK to China, the US to China, Canada to China, etc. You've got to list the operational details. So when you are highlighting on this blank piece of paper, the bullet points of what you're doing, the actual activities, what I want you also to do is draw 3 boxes. All right. One box is supplier. The other box is just China or you. Highlight you. And the third box is client. Okay. So you have to now draw lines. How is the movement of the product going to go? How is the invoicing flow going to go? How is the cash flow going to move? Just diagram it. Start with the basics, guys. Okay. For me, pictograms help a lot, right? Bullet points help a lot. They are my starting point. And what I tell a lot of people who are stuck on creating their business plans is don't focus on the long sentences. Don't focus on being so descriptive. Start off with a blank piece of paper and use bullet points to make notes, or take an actual pen and paper and make diagrams to show how you're actually going to operationally do your business. Okay. This is going to be your starting point. And it's going to be so much easier from that point on to then put pen to paper and actually analyze what you're going to be doing. Okay. If you're providing services, describe them. So like I said, accounting, tax, payroll, incorporation, PO service. These are my bullet points, guys. Okay. Then you add on to that. And over the years, I've added on services. I used to never do business plan and budget validations. I now offer that as a service because I've seen the need for it. Okay. A partner and I, we're going to describe this on Thursday's webinar presentation. We've actually developed a tool to help you actually do these bullet points and make these diagrams and do a SWOT analysis on your strengths and your weaknesses around your business plan and your China market entry so that you have focus. Okay. All we want is the detail to be bullet point details and to be concise. Okay, we don't need the airy-fairy information surrounding all of that. Okay. Now, another aspect that I've added for China that I think is very important to add, and potentially it's also very important when you go into other jurisdictions. I just know it for China. When you're creating your business plan, highlight strategic relationships. Number 1. Okay. Who are you going to be partnering with? Are you going to have mentors, coaches, business advisors, lawyers, HR professionals, marketing professionals, PR professionals? Are you going to have external parties guide you? And are those going to be strategic relationships? Are you going to work with associations? So in the UK, you've got the China-Britain Business Council. You've also got the British Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, Guangzhou. I think British Chamber has a bunch of different offices throughout China. You've also, if you're from Canada, you've got the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, or you've also got the Canadian China Business Council. You've got a variety of different associations available to you in your jurisdictions that are China-related associations. And are you going to use those as strategic relationships to build a network, to get information, whatever it might be? Okay, so what are those strategic relationships? Again, blank piece of paper, make bullet points. Okay, and I get it. And the tricky thing about China is that if you haven't entered the market yet, or you're creating this business plan, you're probably not aware of everything that is available to you. Okay, but start with one person who gives you guidance. build that network and talk to as many people as possible so that you build these strategic relationships and you earn an understanding and information and a knowledge level about doing business in China. Okay. Administrative issues in China. Are you in a sector that is prohibitive, that is restrictive, that requires a joint venture structure? Or are you in a sector or in an industry where you can freely do business in China? Okay. Understand those administrative issues surrounding the Chinese market and the product or service that you want to deliver there. Okay. Intellectual property. So I've highlighted intellectual property. I should actually change that to assets. What are your key assets regarding your Chinese business or the business you want to do in China? Do you own those assets in China? Are you registering your trademark? Are you registering your patents? Are you owning the tools that you're utilizing in the Chinese market for branding or whatever else it might be? Okay. Understand the expenses you will incur overseas in China. And my feeling is once you've got that diagram of the workflow of how the actual supply chain will work, you will understand where expenses are going to be incurred, because you will understand who is where, what are they doing, and what the cost will be associated with it, with what everybody is doing. Then understand the legal structure of your company. So again, whether that might be having an entity overseas or having an entity in China, or using third parties entities, right, for developing your business. Understand what the options are available to you for structuring this business in China, okay? These details should be added inside your business plan. The strategic relationships in China, the administrative issues in China, the intellectual or the assets surrounding your brand in China, what expenses will be incurred both overseas and in China, and the legal structure of your company, okay? Whether that's using third parties, whether that's you having an entity overseas, or whether that's you having an entity overseas and in China, or just having an entity in China, okay? Then you got to analyze who your customers are, all right? My customers are foreign investors that have turnover levels all the way from 0 to about 500 million euros. That's my range. It's a very wide range. I do have niches that I place on my marketing and my branding. My niches are food and beverage, consumer, cosmetics, fashion, e-commerce. What else? I think I'm forgetting a couple of things there. Apparel, etc. So I'm very much focused on people who are looking to sell in the Chinese market, because this is the biggest trend at the moment. Do I have clients in other sectors? Of course I do. But my focus in terms of my marketing and my branding, I only have a distinct budget. I can't spend it on every single sector and niche. I'm focused. Okay, so who are you going to be, who are your customers going to be in China? Are they going to be consumers? Are they going to be businesses? Are you B2C? Are you B2B? Are you B2B to C? Right? What products are you going to be selling? Maybe you won't be selling all product lines. Maybe you'll go specific, right? So again, having that bullet point list of those specific activities you're going to be performing will be critical. Think carefully, who is your niche? And you should be highlighting this niche to your to your investors, to the banks, right? And then go into detail. When you find your niche, right? Who are you going to be approaching? Is it the salesperson in that company? Is it the CEO in that company? I try to focus on the decision makers. So everybody from CFO, CEO to top management, basically, C-level individuals, because they will be the decision makers about going into China. Who are you going to be focused on? Have, again, that niche so you know where you're going to be focusing in China, okay? Determine whether you're going to have a recurring revenue or one-off revenue. I have both. Okay, I've got one-off revenue, which is an incorporation. Once it's done, it's done. My recurring is the accounting works. You have to do that monthly in China. So are you going to have clients where you're going to earn recurring income, or you're going to have clients where you earn one-off income, which means you need to have a mass amount of clients, okay? Make sure you've spoken. As you're creating this business plan, make sure you've spoken to some customers. Do that type of benchmarking analysis where you talk to customers about their frustrations, their wants, their needs. Can you deliver that to them? Okay. Evaluate your target audience, right? And there's no room for guessing here. Investors don't want guessing work. They want facts. And this is the work that you have to do in the research stage. What are the demographics? What are the firmographics? So what are the, if you're looking at demographics, that's individuals, consumers. If you're looking at B2B business, this is the firmographics, all right? Do you have specific locations? China is enormous. Do you want to start somewhere first? Do you want to start in Shanghai, Beijing? Do you want to start on a tier 1 city? So Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing. Or is your focus completely, like many F&B companies, to go into the tier 3, tier 4 cities first, right? It's a strategy. It's a niche, right? So you've got to make that analysis. Are you going to the profession sector? Are you going to have certain groups that are interested in certain things, right? The better you evaluate your target audience, obviously, the more comprehensive your business plan is going to be, right? That's the detail. And this is where I say market research is invaluable, because this is basically doing a competitor benchmarking. It's doing an analysis on your customers and understanding who they are, what their frustrations are, etc. You've got to understand what your opportunities are, right? Successful businesses think big. So you will start small, guaranteed. Every company that goes into China, it's a fresh business. You are starting off with 1, 2, 3 transactions, not more, okay? How are you going to build that from 1 to 2 to 3 transactions to 10, 15, 100 transactions, okay? Write down the growth potential, all right? For people that are selling into China currently with COVID, the only solution is building an e-reputation so people get to know you, distributors get to know you, and to do cross-border e-commerce, right? Because you can't go into China right now. You can't meet people face-to-face. So cross-border e-commerce is potentially the best methodology for this moment in time, but there's a growth potential. Maybe in 5 years, you're going to have your own retail outlet. Who knows? But add that into your business plan, right? Add that opportunity aspect into your business plan. And most people say that when you're creating your business plan, your vision should be at least minimum of 3 years, okay? Some would say it's between 3 to 5 years. Understand the competition. Every single business has competition, okay? If you don't add this inside, people will think that you are naive, okay? Nobody is the top of the top, right? Everyone has competitors. Everybody has potential competitors, right? So analyze who are your direct competitors, who are your indirect competitors. Are there companies that might be potentially coming in because you see that their competitors overseas and they are also thinking about China slowly? What is your USP? What is your unique selling proposition? Okay. My unique selling proposition is the fact that I proactively talk to my clients. Most accounting firms in China do not do that. They send reports, they sit back reactively and wait for feedback from the client versus forcing and pushing the client to get on a call to discuss the financial management reports. We literally act as your in-house CFO, that we have to sit with you every single month. That's my USP. Some people like it, some people don't like it, okay? But that's how I'm differentiating myself amongst my competitors. Okay, so what is your USP based on your service or based on your product that you want to sell in the Chinese market? Okay. And then plan your operations. So this is all about vision, right? But you also have to understand what your daily job is going to be, right? What will be your daily tasks of running this business? And this is why I say that diagram flow of supplier, you, customer. How are you? I mean, I don't have suppliers, but I have just me and customers. So how am I delivering that? What is the customer journey? What is the product and service journey? Okay, think about it from 2 perspectives. Customer journey, what is it going to be like from an operational perspective to bring this customer on? What is the selling journey? What is then also the product journey? How is that product going to flow? Where is it going to start and where is it going to end up? The same with the service. Where is it going to start and where is it going to end up? Okay. So think about the operational guidelines, the business processes, and think about it from a perspective of the journey, the customer journey, the product journey. What will be the sales journey? What will be the onboarding process, etc. Then you got to look into market research and strategies. Now, all of that previously entails market research. But when I talk about market research and strategies here, I'm referring more about marketing and public relations. So you've got to spell out your market analysis. Okay, so based on the data of the opportunities that exist in the Chinese market, you got to describe your marketing strategy. You have to have sales forecasts. You've got to have certain deadlines and milestones, right? When do you predict to break even? When do you predict to start being profitable? Okay. Are you going to advertise? How are you going to stack up against your competition? Okay. If you can't produce a lot of data analysis, or you don't have the funds to do data analysis, then provide testimonials from either existing customers or potential customers that you are interviewing. Okay. That would be your starting point. Okay. And you know, guys, the beauty about China is people are happy to talk to you. Take advantage of that, because in Europe, I'm having the experience that people don't necessarily want to speak to you at all. And it might be because of GDPR regulations. It might be because of internal policies. But in China, people want to talk. They're happy to share and to speak. Use that. Okay. Don't be shy. Go ahead and just contact direct. What is going to hurt you, right, by doing that? When you're doing your marketing plan, think about the 5 Ps. So one is pricing. How much are you going to price your services or your products for? What will be your margin, right? So what are you going to buy things for, and what are you going to sell it for? What's going to be your margin? How does your product or service fit into the market? So I saw the need for people to have China expert CFOs to be able to sit down and help them to grow their business. Why did I see that? Because I saw that there were so many tools coming on the market where companies, small companies, could afford to do their own accounting in-house. And this is all from AI developments. So what do people need from me? Well, they need my 17 years of experience so that I can put them on the right track and avoid as many roadblocks and obstacles as possible, right? That's how I fit in the market. And that's how I differentiate myself against my competitors, right? Promotion, how are you going to attract and communicate with customers? What are the marketing channels you're going to be using? How much do you expect to make per item sold or per service sold? That's something that's a little bit of a tricky calculation to make. And what are your sales outlets? So place, where are you selling your product? Where are you going to be based in China? What sales channels are you going to be utilizing? Retail, e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, etc. Distributors, etc. Okay. I saw this picture online through Google and I thought it was fantastic, right? Especially when you're looking at the 5 Ps. Positioning is not on this, but it's basically looking at the product, its brand, features, packaging, looking at price. So as part of your operational guideline, will you be providing discounts or not? Are you going to be bundling products and services together? Are you going to be differentiating your pricing from product and then on service? Will you provide credit terms, right? Is it going to be a 30-day payment notice, 60, 90, 180? Looking at promotions, what type of promotions are you going to be doing? Ads, PR, social media, email, WeChat, whatever, right? What promotions are you going to be doing? And place, right? So we know it's China. Have you got a city? Is it going to be online, offline? How are you going to actually differentiate that? All right. Then you got to look at management and personnel. Who is physically going to be building this business for you? Is it just you? Are you a one-man show, or are you actually going to be hiring people? Okay. Now, I think that you should build a hierarchy, right? An organogram, basically. You at the top, then you've got people reporting to you, and then you got people reporting to that person. Okay. That shows growth, because as you're growing, you need to have this organogram. If you're going to be hiring senior management personnel and you've already had interviews with these people, or you've spoken to them about your idea and you want to get them on board, add their resumes. Or if you haven't done that yet, show the profile that you're looking for. Okay. It could very well be that you are meeting investors who you actually want to be part of that senior management, or you simply want investors who are silent partners. Okay. Investors tend to look at the people that are going to be supporting your business. So do not under-evaluate the team that you are building up. Okay. Just because it's China, these people are critical for the development of your business. One thing that it took me a long time for me to admit, and now for about 10 years, I have a very clear conscience on this. I will never know more than my staff. Why? Because I'm not a mainland Chinese. I did not go to university in China. I did not attend a Chinese accounting program. I do not go to the annual accounting trainings. My team does. My team has the expertise to deliver the service that I'm promising to my clients at a quality that I know they can deliver it at. I don't. So I'm admitting my weakness. My weakness is I will never know as much as they do. My strength is I have the ability to communicate transparently to foreign investors what they need to know and how they need to know it. I eliminate that misunderstanding and that misunderstanding and the language barrier. Okay. I have the ability to do that because I've learned that over 17 years. I've learned transparency, and that's a fundamental aspect that companies want as well. So it's understanding and highlighting to your investors, but also highlighting to yourself, most importantly, what is your strength? What will be the strength of your team? What is your weakness? What is the weakness of your team? And creating then an organization where you have people that are supporting the business at their best ability and using them at their best ability. Okay. And just admitting to self what you can and cannot do. Okay. This is very hard for a lot of expatriates that are located in China, because they see that the position that they're being offered in China, first of all, they get very, how do you say, they're getting very snobby, and they like the fact that they're in China, and it's a great image to their profile that they're in China. But many of them don't admit what they don't know. And this is something that you have to do from the get-go. You should also highlight, when it comes to personnel and management, why do you need the investor? Why are you approaching them? They may have approached you, mind you, okay? But you need to evaluate, why do you need them? Okay, money is one. There are bound to be another 4 reasons. What are they? Okay, highlight to that. I'm watching a lot of Dragon's Den at the moment. And this is a question that all of these investors that sit in their chairs ask is, why do you need me? You seem to be doing so well. So why do you need me? Why do you need my expertise? You know, the worst or last thing they want to hear is, I just need you for your money. They don't want to hear that. They want to know what additional value they can bring. Okay. So think about that very carefully when you are approaching investors, or investors are approaching you, or you're going, for example, to the bank. You know, you've got to also convince people, why do you need them? Okay. This is why I said with the 4 different types of business plans, the presentation format is something that you can utilize for investors, something you can utilize for banks. It's also something that you can utilize for people, i.e. the employees you want to hire. Because people forget that in China now, it is a much more mature market compared to 17 years ago. And to convince someone to leave their existing job and move to you, you have to convince them. Okay. Obviously, they have to convince you on their skill set, right? And how that might complement you. But you have to convince them why to join you, why to join you as a startup in China. Okay. So think about that, right? And when you are getting the right people in China, think about it as an ecosystem. Think about it as an ecosystem or as a network of individuals that can give you something, right? So don't underestimate having business advisors. And there's an array of those, right? When I say business advisors, I'm talking about lawyers, corporate service providers, accountants, marketing professionals. These are all types of business advisors who have specific expertise in their field. Okay. And have a mentor, have somebody to guide you through that process, to validate what you're doing, to use as a brainstorming arm, right? Where you will get zero criticism and judgment. You'll just get help. Okay. So get the right people on board. As you develop your business, you might feel that you don't need all of these people now, right? But just remember, relationships are a key aspect of doing business in China. So build this network and get the right people on board. My biggest mistake at the point of starting up in China in 2003 was not developing an ecosystem at all and not getting the right people on board and running into roadblocks and obstacles that actually cost us budget versus using that budget for growth. So if there's one thing I want you guys to get away from this is really focus on the people, the investors, the banks, the third parties. And by third parties, that includes employees, that includes suppliers, that includes customers. These are all your people. You want to get the right people on board to develop this business. And you're going to get it wrong at some point. All right. But really analyze the people aspect. And what I would recommend is, again, draw a circle, say you, okay? Who do you need to support? You need employees. What type of employees? Break that down. You need investors. Break that down. What investors do you need? What do you want them to bring to the table? You need maybe lawyers, marketing professionals. Build a you and then build circles all around it. And that's your ecosystem, basically. And that's how you should start your network. Do you need, for example, associations to guide you as well, right? Because they have internal networks themselves to expand from. Then let's look at financial documents. And again, this is something that is mind-boggling to a lot of people going into China because maybe they are not the numbers people. They are the business people. But financial documents are critical, okay? With whatever research you've done, with whatever operational guidelines you've created, with whatever listing of employees, you now have to look at numbers. How much capital do you need to start this business? To break even, okay? That's gonna come from the investors. Then you've got to analyze, and I've made it very nicely here. You got to analyze all your costs. Because initially, to start off your business, you are going to be spending, not necessarily receiving revenue, okay? So you've got to first make the product, okay? Or develop the service. So what's the cost for that? You're going to have costs of labor, manufacture. You're going to have staff costs, especially for service business, right? I can't deliver a service without my team on hand first, right? You've got distribution and marketing costs, so logistics, warehouse, and then marketing and branding. You've got certain fixed and variable overheads. So whether you're developing your business overseas or whether in China, you probably need to have a registered office address somewhere. So that's a cost, it's a fixed cost, etc. Now, there are software systems out there that can help you create a financial model. Some of them are even free of charge, but then provide you only the basics. I think you should try and go as detailed as possible when you're creating your financial plan. Really create every single line item. If you've got revenue and you are deciding that you're going to bring 5 products into the Chinese market, have under revenue 5 line items for each product. What is your expectation of generating revenue for each of those items? What is the cost associated with each of those 5 product items? What is the cost, your general and administrative expense cost in relation to audit? You might have 5 different marketing techniques, 4 to 5 marketing techniques. One might be WeChat, one might be Baidu, one might be offline advertising, variety. Separate those out as detailed as you possibly can. And don't forget, budgeting or financial plans are flexible documents, meaning that I give you a very basic example. I highlighted earlier that I switched from GoToWebinar to Zoom, right? I had to put that in my budget. I had to calculate inside a new line item for Zoom because I didn't want to put it under GoToWebinar. It's a totally different service package, and there will be a different return on investment from each tool and software system, even though the reason why I did it initially was just to do webinars, okay? But I've gone into detail so that I have the ability over the years to make comparisons. okay, and look at the return on investment on certain things. My suggestion is always with financial plans to get validation. Now, in here, I've obviously said talk to a China accountant, because the China accountant will give you the advisory around, for example, how to calculate people's employees' social insurance rates on the ground, how to calculate the individual income tax surrounding that, how do you calculate the bonuses or commissions surrounding that. You might also want to talk to a China accountant on tax liabilities, from profits tax to VAT. You may want to talk to a Chinese accountant on how things are booked. For example, there may be certain things that are not booked into the cost of product, but are booked into the general administrative expenses. There might be some things that are not booked into a P&L, but are booked into a balance sheet because you're following PRC GAAP. So talking to a Chinese accountant is very useful, especially if they are there to validate your financial plans, but you can also talk to accountants in your own home jurisdictions, right? Talk to them about your business plans, use them as a first point of contact to validate things, especially if you are not a numbers person. Use somebody who is a numbers person to go through those documents with you. So guys, that's basically my spiel on how to write a business plan. It's really not complicated. And I want to go ahead now to show you a case study for China. Again, I didn't create this case study. I got it from a partner firm of mine called the Nanjing Marketing Group. They highlighted it as actually purely a marketing plan, but I see it as actually as a mini plan because they've highlighted a whole variety of chapters inside. They've put in company product, goal and scope, how the Chinese marketing fits in the broader strategy. They've put in the team, who the customers are, who are the competitors, what is their positioning, what is their customer journey, and what is their promotions. And basically, it's a 9-slide document, okay? I've just extracted this from them, so it's not so pretty. I apologize for that, but it's going to show you exactly what a mini plan can do by just using bullet points, okay? So let's start it off. So basically, this is a cake company. It's a fun and friendly home cake making brand that both educates and entertains consumers, okay? What are their products? It's cake supplies, cupcake supplies, cake pans, cake packaging. 4 things. Okay, bullet point list, guys. What are their website? What do they have already existing? So they have a website, they've got a Weibo account, and they have a WeChat account. And for them, they are a local entity in China, okay? So this is an expatriate who has set up his own cake shop business. Sam is a girl, and they have an entity in China, okay? So this is the company and the product, guys. Very easy. This is not complicated. You can do exactly this to start off your business plan writing and make it then into a beautiful presentation plan. What is their goal and scope? Their goal is to increase store revenues to $130,000 per month by the end of June 2021. Now, I find this goal a little bit weird because in China, the fiscal year is January to December. So I would have put an annual goal, which maybe would have been 260,000, let's say $130,000 per month by the end of December 2021. So when you're creating your business plans, I would look at annual figures. Look at per month, but put the dates for annual, okay? Because when you create your financial plan, you're going to look at how much you're going to be spending for the year, okay, to then analyze the tax and VAT and everything else around it. So that's how I would have done that. So their goal is to increase revenue, existing revenue, to 130,000. So remember, business plans are to be utilized not only for market entry, but also once you are in China to pivot your business. If you feel that through your what if plans, you're not reaching the goals you've set forth, you're going to have to pivot. How are you pivoting? Sam is pivoting by having the Nanjing Marketing Group come in to do a full service Chinese marketing campaign to bring in this additional revenue. Okay, that is their goal. Okay, and this is what their scope is. They're gonna their goal is this revenue level. How are they going to do it? By bringing in a marketing company that's going to help bring in more customers through a variety of different avenues and channels. Okay, so how are they analyzing their existing revenue and purchases through various tools. One is Google Analytics and one is Weibo. Okay, how are they doing their marketing? They use Facebook organically and ads. Okay, which for China doesn't really make sense. People don't use Facebook and offline ads, which probably isn't as successful as if you would switch that to online. So their goal is to utilize the Nanjing Marketing Group to update their website, do PPC, and do social media marketing. Okay, they've got a budget to spend on this third party of 10 to 15,000 USD per month, which is quite a lot. Okay, but they have a goal, they've got a budget, they've got a goal, they have a need, they've set a budget for that need, they're using a third party to deliver that need, and they have tools to calculate the return on the investment. So why is Sam going through this process? One is obviously to reach her goal, but she's also realizing that if she can reach that goal, she is going to be able to spend less on supplies because she will be purchasing in bulk, amounting to that new revenue goal. Okay. And with this new revenue, she might be able to then produce custom-made products that would add to the products list. Okay. So by attracting more people to visit the various platforms where she's selling these products, yeah, by increasing that, she's going to lower her cost of supply, and she's going to be able to move into new product categories, okay, and use those sales channels to sell those new product category items. Who is going to help and deliver this? Well, she's got a very, very small team. Basically, there's 2 people in her organization. It's Sam, who's the founder, and Joe, who's a lead marketeer. Sam is working in the shop, okay? Then you've got Lillian, who's actually part of the Nanjing Marketing Group, who's going to be coming in as a third-time outsourced provider, basically. So don't underestimate outsourced providers. If you don't have the ability to hire someone full-time, you can always outsource initially until you grow to a certain level to build an in-house team, okay? You've got to understand exactly what are the roles and responsibilities of each of these 3 people. What does Sam do on a daily basis? What does she want to do? What should she be doing? Joe, what's Joe's responsibility on a daily basis? What's Lillian's responsibility on a daily basis? Okay, you've got to make that bullet point list. What should they be focusing on every day to reach that goal? You've got to understand who your customers are. So Sam has, again, made a bullet point list of the customers, and this is based on existing information. So she knows that 60% of her customers are women between the age of 30 and 45, okay? But there are other main groups as well. There are students and there are gift buyers, okay? So there are 3 categories, just generally women, students, and gift buyers, okay? What do customers say they want? What are their frustrations? What are their wants and needs? Okay, so here customers ask about, how do I bake, right? They ask XYZ. People are posting photos of food items and are asking, what is this? How do you get that, right? What have customers said about Sam's cake shop, right? And what have customers said about why they don't do business with them? So she's basically made an evaluation, a survey on existing customers, why they work with her, why they continue to buy from her, and why they have never bought or will never buy again. So why will they never buy? Because Sam charges too much for shipping, okay, compared to other competitors. You've got to know what your customers' wants and needs are. You've got to evaluate that, okay? How does the competition compare? Again, these are all bullet points, guys, right? And obviously, Nanjing Marketing Group, they offer templates in relation to developing this analysis, okay? Manfred and my tool, which is all about alignment and orientation on the Chinese market, that's a tool that will help you to see things on a macro level, but you do have to go in depth, okay? So how does the competition compare? Well, there are three types of competitors. There's the low priced, the local stores, and the suppliers to the business, right? And she gives examples of websites and what is her opinion on those, okay? So very low prices, an intermediate variety, fast service, poor branding, ugly website, fewer European cake brands, right? And then you've got another one, the last one, which says a good site for cake supplies, but they focus on restaurants and caterers. So they have a niche, okay, that might be different compared to Sam. So knowing what your competitors are doing, I know for probably a good top 10, 12 of my competitors, what is their niche? What are they doing? How are they doing it? How are they pricing it? Because I do benchmarking studies every so often to verify this information and to know then how I can differentiate myself on the market, okay? This slide is very small, apologies, I couldn't make it any larger. But basically what Sam did was she did a SWOT analysis to understand her positioning in the market. And a SWOT analysis is basically looking at your company's strengths, looking at its weaknesses, looking at the opportunities, and looking at the threats, and going through that in great detail. And this is something that we do in our orientation and our alignment tool, is to do really a SWOT analysis amongst all the decision makers. And what is fascinating is that when you look at each decision maker in a company, they will have very different bullet points under each of those items because they'll have a different perspective on the business. So you have to get alignment amongst the decision makers within your organization. It is critical that for your market entry, you do a SWOT analysis, but that you continue to do SWOT analyses every year to know and to vocalize. I think this is actually more of the critical thing, is to vocalize what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your threats. It is great to do this exercise prior to developing your next year's business plan so that you can have a focus for improvement and efficiency, okay? And to know where your positioning is amongst your competitors, okay? You've got to understand what is your customer journey. And again, doing it like in a numbers check form, right? Step 1, they find us on social media. Step 2, they check the store. Step 3, they add to the cart. Step 4, they register. Step 5, they check out. Step 6, they pay via WeChat Pay. Step 7, we follow on additional social media or email newsletter. What they didn't add here was the product flow. Okay, so they pay via WeChat Pay. You add them, but on a separate category, I would have done the product flow. How does the product flow? They pay via WeChat. Maybe your warehouse gets a notification. Your warehouse staff do the packaging. They then deliver out, and the client gets it in 1 or 2 days. Right? You've got to understand also the length of time of that product journey. All right. So I would have added a product journey as well, right? Because that is part of the customer journey, is knowing how quickly can that customer get the product. Is it 2 days, 1 day, 7 days, 10 days, 30 days, etc. Okay. And start very simple. I mean, this is really just so basic, guys, but it's what you build onto your business plan. Okay. You don't have to make things complicated. Then in terms of promotions, how are you going to be marketing your business? So I create every year a new marketing plan. So I analyze how much do I want to spend on my budget? How much room do I have based on last year's profitability to then spend on next year's? Okay. What will be my sales channels? My marketing channels or my promotional channels? What are my goals for those channels? Okay. So when you're doing marketing for China to attract Chinese consumers or Chinese customers, you need to build a level of a reputation that is consistent and you have continuous momentum. If you create one article and that article is never updated, and when somebody looks at it, I don't know, 2, 3 years down the line, they won't know if you still exist. So when you're promoting, just keep in mind these 2 words, consistency and momentum. All right. And understand what would be your budget for marketing, because that will then decide on what avenues or channels you want to use. So in this case, they're going to do a mixture of Baidu, PPC. They've got a budget of 20,000 RMB per month for ad spend, and Weibo. Okay. And they're going to have their own blog. All right. So that's how they've done it. That's 9 slides, guys, of literally bullet points analysis. Okay. And you might need to verify all of those sections with people. And you haven't, even in this mini plan, you haven't gone into the whole financial guidelines and things like that. But this is their goal for 2021. And that's the type of revenue that they want to achieve, 130,000 USD per month. And they're going to do it in this way. Okay. That's how you should actually be presenting that to an investor. Very clear. You might have to add more information, right? Based on the who, where, why, when, how. Okay. To end up today's presentation, I just want to highlight, keep it simple. Complex and long documents. Nobody is going to read it, not even you. You can write it if you like, but you won't even read it again. So don't bother, okay? Even investors won't read it, okay? It needs to be something that's brief, concise, relevant, and focused, okay? Again, I like PowerPoint presentations myself. It just gives me I'm a visual person. It helps me visually. The mini plan is actually what I start to use as my working plan. And I do that hand on paper with quick notes. If you feel like you're continuously writing versus doing bullet points, stop, take a break, go back. And remember, edit it, yeah? Use people to validate it, okay? Use outside parties to validate it and go to people who can bring a certain level of expertise for different sections of it, all right? The core of a good business plan is just a few pages long. And once you've got the core done, go back to the executive summary and provide 5 to 6 bullet points to summarize, right? Plan your business around your strengths. Know what your strengths are. And that's part of the SWOT analysis, right? First of all, you're doing it on the business, and then you've got to do it on yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a general manager. You've got to know what your strengths are. You've got to know where you should be improving, okay? So you've got to write your business plan, but keep in mind as you're writing what your strengths are and what you need people to bring in for the areas that you're weak, okay? You've got to make it a very realistic business plan, okay? And just remember, it's a roadmap. I always call it the China roadmap because it is something that is not set in stone. It is a journey. It is a journey that can sometimes be a roller coaster ride where you've got very, very highs and very, very lows. The goal, my goal for most people that is going into China now is to avoid the roadblocks and the obstacles so that you have more smooth sailing compared to those that have been doing business in China 20 years ago, where really, I don't want to say we were the first people going in, because you had people going in the 70s. It was just different types of mistakes being made. And what we want to avoid is the common obstacles, the common roadblocks that pop up, okay? But just know, the business plan is something that is not set in stone. It's flexible, which is why I think it's good to have that working plan to amend it as you see things occurring in real time. Review it at least once a year. So what I do actually is my focus is actually on my financial plan. In my financial plan, I have a column which says assumptions. My assumptions are the business plan, basically. And that financial plan is actually what I utilize on a month, is what I utilize as my working plan on a month-to-month basis. So I amend the assumptions month to month. I look at my against what I've budgeted in my plan. And that is a document I use as my working plan, and I take notes on it month to month with new ideas, fresh ideas of how I want to correct things in the coming year. Okay. And then get feedback, guys. I mean, again, I can't emphasize that more, because doing this on your own is already tough. You're always going to have doubts in your head. You'll have doubts. You'll have fear to make decisions. So use people to validate it so that you're moving it further along. Okay. I loved this. This was something that, again, I saw on a Google search, and these were all questions that actually you should be asking yourself as you create your business plan. And I thought this was a fantastic little conclusion or end. If you guys want to take a quick photo of this, you are more than welcome to. I suggest you do, because these are all questions you should be asking yourself as you are creating the business plan. And if you have the ability to answer every single one of these questions related to your business, then you're very well on the path of creating your business plan. So, you know, what's the problem? Like, what problem are you guys going to be solving? Who's the audience? What channels are you going to be using to get to that audience? Who are your competitors? What's the solution to the problem? What are the costs, the revenues, the business boosters? And then obviously in the green section, you're looking at the elevator pitch. So there's an example which says, I help what audience with this problem by providing a solution. Unlike these competitors, I differentiate myself like this. It's one sentence, guys, right? And it's a powerful sentence that can get the investors on board. But you have to have tremendous amount of clarity about what you're going to be doing in the Chinese market. Okay. You can use this guideline for any jurisdiction that you want to enter to. Okay. There will be certain things that you have to think about in relation to the Chinese market based on, for example, the Chinese marketing tools, looking at the financial plans from a Chinese financial perspective when you're calculating VAT or other China-related taxes, etc. Okay. So I would love to hear what your biggest takeaway from today was. There are not too many of you on here, but it would be great if you guys could add that into the Q&A session. It always helps me to know if I was on the right track in terms of creating this presentation. Even if you guys would have liked to hear something in addition, please add that in, because that's something that I can then always add into the next presentation. So please type away in the Q&A section. Let me know what your biggest takeaway for today was. Here are 7 ways of how you can work with me. So one is the business and financial plan validation. Manfred and I also offer the alignment and orientation workshop, which is a tool we created that will be highlighted on Thursday's session in terms of how it works, what it delivers, etc. What are its advantages. Then obviously everything in terms of incorporation advisory, implementation. We do competitor business scope benchmarking. We do appointments of people within the corporate management structure of the company, tax advisory, and then outsourcing solutions. Then if you guys want to book a strategy session with me, again, let's see if I can do that now. No, I'll have to exit. I'll do this at the end once the recording is stopped. I'll put in all my details on how to reach me. And if you guys want to book a session with me to jump on a call quickly to discuss what you need, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'll do that once the recording is stopped. But let's start the Q&A. There have been no questions that have come in. Everyone's been kind of quiet. Well, let me check. There's something that's popped in the chat box. Rob said, thank you, Christina. Very informative. Agreed. Best to have a simple plan as they are more agile. We're a few years off China at the moment, but work with Chinese companies and also have a business network connections who may be able to utilize Woodburn's experience and services. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that if you pass that on. That's fantastic. And I'm happy that you got something out of this. It's wonderful. If you guys want to add it in the chat section or in the Q&A section, just add your questions in. Nothing else has popped in so far. But if you guys do, very quiet so far. But just to let you guys know, so tomorrow, as part of the business plan again, you've got to know how you're going to operate. And tomorrow, I'm going to highlight 6 ways to do business in China without actually establishing an entity in China. So what business models exist in order for you to not make a big commitment yet to the market and to utilize these solutions as a test to see how the market is going to move forward. Then on Thursday, so all of that is in relation to using partners on the ground who are going to help you to facilitate that business. So on Wednesday's session, we're going to look at how you can vet those partners. I'm going to provide you with tools on how you can do some of that vetting yourself. And then areas where you can get more information about, or get more detail in regards to certain partners, and where you can get that information from. So I'll be highlighting that on Wednesday, and on Thursday, we're going to be looking at this tool again to see how to bring your business further within the first 3 years of operation. because usually the first 3 years of operation are always the areas where the biggest amount of obstacles and roadblocks pop in. And usually in 95% of the cases, it stems from companies, the decision makers within companies not being in alignment and not giving the right directives to the team on the ground or to the outsourced providers or the various third parties in regards to what they want to do. So it is looking at that tool and basically highlighting, you know, how you can push that forward, how you can eliminate the roadblocks, obstacles, and push your business forward within the first 3 years. If you guys are interested in subscribing to it, you can do that at woodburnglobal.com/events. And then if you guys are really keen to understand, because you have an entity in China, I've developed the China Profit Accelerator, which is a workshop that I'm doing in March about how you can analyze your business from a financial perspective and see whether you are in a good or bad standing when reflecting on the financial aspects of your organization. So if you're interested in that, that's already set up on our website. You can go to woodburnglobal.com/events as well. No other questions and comments have popped in, so I think I'm going to leave it there. I'll be staying on, and I'll send you guys my contact details as well. I'll go to the other slide once I stop sharing the screen, and I'll add it into the chat section of the control panel. So if nothing else is popping in, I want to thank everyone for joining me. It was a very small group today. I really appreciate it. Please do join us for our other sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week if you'd like to get more info. And otherwise, have a great afternoon, a great day, great evening, and enjoy. Take care and goodbye.